This will sound very strange, but the day that President Trump visited East Palestine, the location of the bomb train, the explosion and the toxic fire and the mass evacuation of the town East Palestine, the day that Trump was there, Trump's visit to East Palestine, on the same day as the uranium fire at the National Nuclear Security Administration complex and the evacuation of this complex, is a massive prophetic sign from God that is predicting that a dirty bomb will explode in Manhattan on April 13th, 2023. And there will be a massive evacuation of Manhattan Island. It is also likely that the official narrative in the mainstream media that will emerge regarding this event will somehow be a lie. The date that this video is posted proves that this prediction was made ahead of time, as does this timestamped email and forensic notes PDF. If you are skeptical, please email me and I will forward these to you. As you can see in this email, this prediction was known since at least February 22nd. There are also many other videos on this channel that make this prediction that were posted many days before this video was posted. On February 22nd, 2023, emergency services responded to a uranium fire at the National Nuclear Security Administration complex in Tennessee. Reading from the Fox News article, a fire, quote, involving uranium, unquote, broke out Wednesday morning at the Y-12 National Security Complex in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, prompting an emergency response, according to a spokesperson for the National Nuclear Security Administration. Quote, emergency services responded to the event. The site activated the Y-12 Emergency Response Organization, and we've been in close contact with local and state officials, the spokesperson said. Roughly 200 employees were evacuated from the building, with all employees accounted for. Other buildings next to the building 9212 were evacuated as well. This evacuation, due to a uranium fire at the National Nuclear Security Administration complex, is a massive prophetic sign from God, a massive judgment sign on the nation that is predicting that a dirty bomb will explode in Manhattan made up of uranium. A dirty bomb is a conventional bomb with nuclear uranium material, and there will be a mass evacuation from Manhattan Island, which is what this uranium fire and evacuation hints at. All right, so within the numbers, there are a few confirmations here. First of all, this is the Y-12 National Security Complex in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. The Y-12, and it was also, as it was mentioned, the Y-12 Emergency Response Organization was involved. So Y-12 hints at the 25th letter in the alphabet, the letter Y, and 25 and 12 equal 37, which is a number that God uses as symbolism for 3 sets of 7. 37, 3 sets of 7. God frequently uses 3 sets of 7 in his prophetic signs because the security walls of Jericho collapsed in God's judgment after the Hebrews marched around the walls of security 7 times while 7 priests blew 7 trumpets, and then the walls of security collapsed in God's judgment. These walls of security parallel this national security complex, and that's why we have this 37 involved in the name of the national security complex. When the dirty bomb will explode and there will be a mass evacuation, this will be the walls of security of America collapsing in God's judgment. It will be the follow-up judgment destruction that was warned of on 9/11 in Manhattan. The area code of Manhattan is 212, which is why the building that had the fire was 9212. This hints at 9 and 212. The number 9 is the most important number in God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, which is only being explained on this channel, as from the Bible, the number 9 symbolizes God's judgment. And so with this 9212 building, we have 9 and 212, which hints at judgment, and the judgment being in Manhattan. The area code of Manhattan is 212. The employees at this national security complex were evacuated from building 9212, which hints at the evacuation predicted to be evacuation on April 13th of Manhattan Island. Now, here is an email that I wrote to some friends, and we can see here the date that I wrote it, February 22nd. I actually wrote this on the day of the news of this uranium fire at the National Security Administration complex. And so what I'm going to do is just read what I wrote at the time. So the Feast of Pentecost is symbolized by fire, because on the first Pentecost, which began the church age, it was tongues of fire that came down on the disciples in the upper room. As well, the first Pentecost out of Egypt, smoke and fire came down on Mount Sinai, which is what the tongues of fire and the upper room paralleled on the first Pentecost of the church age. And also, Pentecost literally means 50th day. That's what Pentecost means. This uranium fire and evacuation at a federal facility, which gives this national symbolism, in the 16th state, God uses the number 16 to hint at 4 times 4 and 44 and the 44th president, on February 22nd, is more stunning confirmation that 50 days later will be the predicted dirty bomb and evacuation in Manhattan. So February 22nd, the date of this uranium fire and evacuation, is exactly 50 days before it is predicted that there will be a dirty bomb with uranium material and evacuation in Manhattan. On this same day, President Trump, God's trumpet that he uses to trumpet and highlight his prophetic signs, was in East Palestine, the site of the explosion, toxic fire, and evacuation. So Trump, God's trumpet, because when the walls of security collapsed in God's judgment, the Hebrews blew trumpets, including for one long last trumpet blast. And that's why Trump was in East Palestine on the same day as the uranium fire and evacuation. East Palestine was evacuated because of a toxic fire and an explosion. And that's why Trump was in East Palestine on the same day, in order to parallel and point to the prophetic significance of this uranium fire. Also, by the way, the walls of security collapsed on Jericho on Pentecost. And that is deduced from a simple, correct reading of the account in the book of Joshua. Furthermore, God has confirmed this in 2018, 2019, and 2020 with a stunning parallel of prophetic signs with the timing of events in the book of Joshua that climaxed with the symbolic walls of security collapsing on Jericho on Pentecost in those years, which is explained in other videos. So Pentecost, the walls of security collapsed on Pentecost, which means 50th day. And that's why we have from these fires 50-day connections. But also the walls of security collapsed after trumpets. And that's why Trump was in East Palestine on the same day as this evacuation and fire at the National Security Complex. Complex is even hinting at the structure, the perimeter wall of security of Jericho. And again, there is the 37 in the name of the security complex. It's the Y12, which hints at the book of Joshua. So it's absolutely astounding, all of the confirmation here. Okay, and I wrote in this email again that the fire occurred in building 9212, which again hints at the area code of Manhattan 212 and 9 judgment. And so also, one other thing is that the 9212 also hints at 9 and 2 1 plus 2 equals 3, which gives us a 923. Anyway, God uses this. This was in the 16th state, which hints at the 44th president because 16 is 4 times 4. And that's confirmed in other signs. And also God pairs 9 and 23 together to confirm or reveal the identity of the Antichrist, the basketball president that wore jersey number 23 and became president in 2009. Also, speaking of a dirty bomb, the Manhattan blackout on July 13th, 2019, the extremely prophetic blackout, which was also hinting at, among other things, this dirty bomb explosion in Manhattan, which is 45 months later, exactly, and it was the 45th president that was God's trumpet, warning of the judgment destruction. And Trump is from Manhattan. But more reasons for the prophetic relevance of this is explained in other videos, this 45 months connection. But anyway, that Manhattan blackout was exactly 923 months after the official start date of the Manhattan Project. The Manhattan Project is, of course, the project that developed the uranium atomic bomb. And so there we have this amazing confirmation 50 days earlier. The only reason why this is being posted the day before on April 12th is because there are many other videos that I needed to produce before this one. And in fact, there are 10 to 15 more videos that I didn't have time for. That's how much evidence God has provided for this prediction for April 13th, the dirty bomb explosion and mass evacuation of Manhattan Island. And speaking of Trump and this uranium fire, this prophetic uranium fire at the Y-12 National Nuclear Security Complex, and this Y-12 hinting at the number 37, which hints at the book of Joshua and the 3 sets of 7 when the trumpets were blown outside the walls of security of the ancient city of Jericho. Trump trumpeted a national emergency due to COVID on March 13th, 2020, exactly 37 months before April 13th, and the predicted date for this dirty bomb explosion in Manhattan and mass evacuation of Manhattan, which will be a national emergency, exactly 37 months after Trump trumpeted a national health emergency, and will symbolize America's walls of security collapsing in God's judgment.